This summer, Instacart is bringing back your favorites from 1999 with prices from 1999. That means 90s prices on juice pouches that ought to be respected, 90s prices on box mac and cheese, and 90s prices on ham, cheese, and cracker lunches. Enjoy all those throwbacks and more at throwback prices, only through Instacart. $4.72 maximum discount per $10 of eligible items. Limit one offer per order. Expires September 5th while supplies last. Discount based on CPI comparison.
Welcome to episode 81 of Winging It. Transfer special, hopefully. As you can tell, it's not Terence. This nasal, whiny voice is going to hopefully try and lead the episode today. Albert's not here either, as per, but we do have a friend of the pod, basically regular guest now, Carl. Thanks for coming, mate.
Hi, Hesketh. Great to be here. I'm a stand-in for T and for Albert, so get in there. New levels.
New levels. I'm sure everyone prefers it when they're not on anyway, so this is the A team, really. I missed you a couple of weeks ago when you were on because I was still out in the States, trying to silently celebrate the Community Shield when my baby niece was asleep and not trying to wake her up. But it's only been a week off and now you're back.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I think the outline of what I said there, what was going to happen in the transfer market, without saying any names, has come through. So I'm taking on regular at the start of the season. I'll go missing as the alcohol sinks in through the season.
Great. Well, hopefully you don't go missing in Norway, in the fjord somewhere. We'll see. Maybe if we lose and we're all trying to drown our sorrows. But talking of drowning sorrows, we should probably start, even with T not here, with beer check. Do you have a beer?
I have a beer. You would have heard the pod last time, Hesketh. I didn't have my favourite. I'm back in stock. I had to nick one of the lads last time. I have got a Vault City, Edinburgh's finest brewery, raspberry, strawberry, coconut ripple IPA.
Oh my god!
There you go. That's me done. And I've got to say, this can cost me about £3. From tomorrow, I'm at about £10 a pint.
Yeah, I'll make the most of it. On Albert's behalf, obviously, he's disgusted at hearing that sort of Haribo-esque drink. But to be fair, he'll be upset at me as well because I'm just drinking water. Nice and boring. We can pretend, for Albert's sake, that I'm drinking, a can of Heineken or something, but I wouldn't lower myself to that. So we, as the title of the show sort of makes obvious, we're going to be talking a lot about transfer stuff in the sort of lead up to transfer deadline ending, starting and ending. But I think beforehand, we should just get them out of the way because we've had a couple of matches. And whilst I know people will want to hear the juicy transfer stuff, we have already had our first ever proper European game. It seems weird that we've already had a game in between that and now. But Fredrikstad at home, how excited were you to be walking to Selhurst for a European game?
I was honestly stupidly excited. I was really, really excited. I'd like to apologise to everybody at work on the build-up of Thursday afternoon because the mind had clearly drifted. I slipped out slightly early, got myself down the Pawsons, and again, you sort of walked in there going, is it going to be an atmosphere? Is it all just about me? And there's everybody in there singing, the pub is packed, and yeah, it was brilliant. Absolutely loved it. I didn't venture as far as buying a half and half scarf, but it was it was great, and everything that I wanted it to be, apart from about 2 goals more, I would say.
Yeah, I was the same. I think I don't go on as much, although I've been dragged back into it, but sort of looking at a few things on socials and the build-up, it was not as excited as I would have expected some people to be. I think because it's the Conference League and not the Europa and all that stuff we've talked about a lot. But like you, I was very excited. It's Europe. We'd all love to be in the Europa, but it is what it is. We're in the Conference League. It's something that even I'm saying this, something we can win. I'm sure that's what Glasner's saying to all the players. So I was really excited to see it. I don't think I'd ever imagined I would, is sort of my point. And so when I was going towards the ground, it was something a bit different. And yeah, I was really, really ready to see Palace dominate and win 5-0. What do you think? I guess the main talking point of the lineup was no Eze. After Glasner had said that he expected him and Gay to play. What did you make of that? Were you surprised that he said that he was going to play with this sort of move in the offing, or did you think that's just the way Glasner is, wants to put his best team out?
Yeah, look, I think both of those things are true. I'm pretty darn certain if you'd sat down with the owners and said, do you want Eze to play or not? The simple answer is no. We don't want him to play. No risk of injury, nothing like that. It absolutely blows everything they're doing. So they wouldn't have wanted it. Quite clearly, Glasner has said he wanted him and he was available. They made him available.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually, if you spin it on to the press conference post the game, where he absolutely lost his shit with regards to our transfer strategy, I think that was and you then relay that versus his press conference after the Forest game,
Mm-hmm.
you see what a manager he is. This isn't, the scenarios haven't overly changed. The difference is he's a perfectionist who'd worked with that team which had Eze in it, and he doesn't want anything disrupting his match day.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that there's no way Gay leaves next Thursday. If he's in my team to play, it's that, isn't it? And
yeah.
So the moment he said he was playing, I actually expected him to play. And
yeah,
I think it's turned out that it was Ebbs who dropped out, not anything else. And yeah, he was clearly quite grouchy about all of that. And look, I've never had that experience whereby we've had a player that we've definitively known was leaving
mm-hmm.
be playing. I can't remember one. It's not like Wilf's last game. If we'd known, it would have been different, and all of that.
yeah,
I was actually just as excited. Well, not just excited, but I was excited also to see Ebbs on the final time, expecting us to be 3-0 up and him coming off on 60 minutes and the whole ground singing his song, But
yeah,
hey, it is what it is.
yeah. I feel the same. I mean, I, like you, was sort of a bit surprised in the sense that if we're getting 65, 67 million, whatever it is, you don't want to put that in jeopardy, especially with us needing to bring players in. But again, like you, when Glasner says something, you take it at face value, especially with team stuff, and we know what he's like with his preparations for games. So yeah, it was a weird one because normally I would have not expected him to play. But like you said, as soon as Glasner said he was, I was like, well, that's it then. He is. I just hope he doesn't get hurt. But we lined up, well, so I suppose a couple of changes. Lerma was in instead of Richards. I think that was just because Richard had a slight knock, maybe. Sosa in for his full debut, if we're not counting the Community Shield. And then Justin Devaney in Eze's place. I guess we'll start with Devaney, really, because it's not the sort of position I normally expect him to be. I like him. To be honest, I thought Eze was going to start, much as Glasner doesn't seem to trust him, which we'll get into. Just because I felt that, much like we saw happen, the Norwegians would play a pretty defensive game and we'd need someone to get past a couple of players. And much as I love Devaney, I sort of see him more as I play him in the away game when we're sort of keeping it tight or whatever. Were you surprised that Devaney started? Do you think that he's a player that Glasner obviously trusts and so that's why he's in?
I think you hit the nail on the head with the last bit. I think if he had known he hadn't had Ebbs all week, it may well have been Eze. Because he may well have had him in, had played him in the bit, talked him through it, what his defensive duties are, where he's to make an impact and all of that. He didn't have any of that. He found out 7-8 hours before kickoff he hasn't got Eze, and he's turned to the one player he knows who he can trust. who's played that position, at Villa away, albeit at Villa away they were clearly coming onto us and he had space to play into. And I think he probably also thought, I've got Sosa. So, Devaney, you tuck in, let Sosa come on the outside. And it's clearly the safer option, Devaney, in that position, especially against a deep block than having Essay on there. But unfortunately, I do think it simply come down to Romain hadn't had that week of work with. He's a system manager. The system comes absolutely first, and Dev knows that system where Romain, Liverpool away, showed it. He doesn't quite. So, was it. He played safe.
What did you make of Sosa as well? I mean, it's quite a tough game, I guess, to make a full sort of opinion on a player, especially when the team you're playing are playing so deep. But how did you feel? Because he's obviously been brought in as the more attacking wing back compared to Ty, I suppose, or his strengths are in the attacking, crossing sort of part of the game rather than Ty's being more defensive. Tough game for him to come in for. How do you think he did?
Yeah, look, it was. I think firstly, you go back to again Glasner's comments over the last few days. He sees him as a ready-made, grown-up player who can come in and can make a difference, and he gives him a different option at left wing back. So there's the positive, and that says everything about what Glasner wants out of our transfer window. The second bit, he came in. I guess he didn't have to worry too much about what was going behind him. That said, it was clearly that was the area they tried to get behind. They'd obviously done a little bit of work on it, and that's where they attacked for the first 15 minutes. I think he's clearly good on the ball. He clearly wants to get forward. He was a little bit hit and miss on his crosses. There was, I think you could probably see the Community Shield straight away. Oh, I like that. The ball come in straight away into Mateta. There was another one that came into, who was it? Can't remember what it was. Another one of the Community Shield straight away, first time ball in. He was hitting the front man. He was slightly too long, but it was coming in with pace. He definitely gives us an option. That's for absolute certain. Quite clearly, what he wants though is space to run into and whip a ball in, and all he was doing was running into, defensive-minded players in a block. I think we've probably seen the best of him in a game where a team's coming out and he's got space to run into.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the one thing I liked, even though most of his crosses weren't really coming off, you can obviously tell that that's what he wants to do. He's always looking to get that cross in. And you would hope with someone like Mateta up front, Sarr running in behind, Munoz running in behind, we've seen him do that at the far post, that having someone with that sort of mentality at left wing back is really going to benefit us. So, tough for him.
Mateta's going to love him. Mateta's going to absolutely love him. I mean, look, as every match goes by, look, I love T to bits. I love Tyrick Mitchell to bits. But as every game goes by, you realise it was the laws of averages that delivered the perfect cross at Brighton away for Ismail Assar's goal. Because it just... nobody knows quite where his crosses are going. You can see with Sosa that, he's far more refined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The game itself, not massive amounts to talk about beyond that. We found it quite hard going to break him down. And I think Glasner said after the game, probably in the midst of being a bit pissed off at Eze not playing, that you need a player like Eze who can just sort of take the game by the scruff of the neck, go past two players and bang a shot in. And I have to say, though, in the second half, we did have chances, but the goal itself, I thought at the time, just sort of hit JP on the head. But having looked at it back, I think he might have put his head towards it,
Yeah, he does. He just, doesn't he? He knows exactly what he's doing in that split second.
And it was obviously, it's great. First ever European goal. Of course, it's Mateta, gets the boom. And you can see, we've talked about Europa or Conference League. All the players want to do well in this competition. It's still good. It's still fun for them.
Yeah, totally. Look, again, you go back to what you said earlier. I'm over it's the Europa League. All now, there's a little bit that's even slightly more excited. Just get through this and get into the league stage.
Mm-hmm.
The next round after that is in March. We could still have our season well and truly alive in March. And we've been spoiled over the last 12 months. But beyond that, our seasons blur into one, be it's in the
Mm-hmm.
Premier League or the Championship. And actually, all you remember is some of the dazzling players that we've had, not the actual what the season's about. Well, this season could be truly defined by us going all the way to Leipzig and lifting a trophy. So, yeah, you can see that in the players. They were right up for it. There was no. This wasn't a Carabao Cup second round, and they're half-arse going through the motions. And it was only a couple of years ago we had Plymouth away, and it took a bit of an explosive game as we were getting run ragged, by reserves of Plymouth. They were fully up for this at the Palace team.
Yeah, completely agree. And as I said, we had a couple of other chances to make it a bit more comprehensive, a bit more comfortable, but we'll take the win for now. We'll have a bit of a chat right at the end about the game that's coming up, but I guess we should then move on after the sort of pressers or the interviews on the pitch afterwards. You've already alluded to Glasner being a bit pissed off. Parish also did some interviews. Good to see Joel and Glenn Murray being the pundits. Just a quick one, I guess. We've talked about Glasgow. What about with Steve doing the interview? It's obviously quite tough to have to talk after a game and not know what each other has said.
Yeah, I didn't actually think. I thought the press got enough to play with to pull us apart. Actually, there weren't too many degrees in difference. They were talking about different things. You've got Glasner saying Gay can't go before next Thursday, which was referred to as Gay not going. And you've got Steve going, he wants to stay, he signs a contract. We can't be losing. Those weren't polar opposite opinions, in any which way. So it's look, I'm a good friend of Steve, and I wouldn't want anybody else owning the club. That said, he can, he beat himself up on mistakes that have been made. I don't think we should ever be upset that we've got an owner wanting to come out and talk and do interviews, etc. And the easiest thing to do is for him to hide, and then it's just Glasner's voice out there, and you're going, where is the ownership? Where is all of that? And he's tried to express, where Palace are in that position. And again, it wasn't overly talked, but I watched back the whole of the interview because he talked about we were a little bit thin before going into the window. We need to bring players in. So all of the really positive stuff, putting all of the pressure on them to go deliver all of that, none of that was really reported. It was all played out, this conflict of the different opinions between Glasner and Parish. Well, I don't think they have got different opinions. They might want slightly different things. Back to what I said on the pod a couple of weeks ago. If you ask Glasner, who would he prefer in the defence next year, he'll choose Mark Gay every day of the week because he's already trained him, knows what he's going to do. He's a top centre-back. He doesn't have to worry about the depreciation over the course of the year and, losing him for nothing. That's not his problem. But it'd be best for Crystal Palace football, Crystal Palace football team, not necessarily Crystal Palace Football Club.
Yeah, very true. And things sort of didn't really simmer down for the fans because obviously next up was Forest at home, the sort of pantomime villains, and obviously there was a lot of talk about it and someone calling it El Clasico. I thought it was a game of, I hate to say it, a game of two halves, really, wasn't it? I think we came out of the blocks pretty well first half, and the more the first half went on, the better I thought we were. How did you feel, first of all, with the atmosphere? I thought the atmosphere was pretty good at the start. What did you think of the tifo?
Yeah, I think, again, I thought the atmosphere was excellent. I thought it was really, really good. You could feel a little bit of an edge to it, but by the same token, it would have been really easy for the HF to have made the tifo about the injustice or Marinakis or Forest or whatever it wasn't. They didn't. Mm-hmm. They made it about what the greatest day in our history and I thought they put on a fantastic display. I thought it did really, really good. The Homesdale looked magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know what it was that was coming, and I was looking at it. It's going to come down. Well, it went up, and
Yeah.
it's one of those. It's another memorable bit. It extends the FA Cup victory out into August and that celebration at Selhurst. So again, look, I thought they did a brilliant job, and it wasn't about fucking UEFA at that stage, and it was absolutely about, hey, look, we've won an FA Cup, and I can't speak for Forest fans, and I've seen the clip of them going, "What the fucking hell is that?" Well, you know what that is, and if you'd won a trophy in your lifetime, you would do a tifo about it as well. So there was jealousy and a half sat there with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always good with the tifos because I'm in Block D, so I'm right sort of by the HF. So I'm always under a bit of card or under a bit of canvas or whatever. So it's always good after the game to look at what
Yeah.
actually the tifo was.
So we have a competition trying to always work out what. So we've got built. What's it built on? Yes, we're trying to work out what this.
And how did you feel the first half went in that game?
I thought we were really good. Bill got pretty much as your very quick summary. We thought we grew into it. Well, look, we looked like Crystal Palace. We were very, very solid. We were very combative. Took us about 2, 3, 4 minutes maybe to get through everybody at the pace of that game. We kept breaking down on the ball. But yeah, we got better as the game went on and the half went on. And I thought we deserved our lead quite clearly. When hindsight's really easy, but a few of us were saying it at halftime, really needed to go in 2-0 up.
Yeah.
There were enough, whilst we were on top, we needed to put the foot on their neck and break it. I mean, our record against Forest since, our record against Forest full stop, but our record against Forest since they've been promoted is poor. We've not beaten them. I'm not sure at 2-0 down, do they come back from it? But yeah, it was half-time came. It wasn't sometimes you go, we didn't need half-time. I think we probably did need half-time. Our legs would have run dead. But what we needed to be was going in 2-0 up and them a bit punch-drunk from it.
Yeah, completely agree. I think we did have those chances towards the end there where perhaps should have done a bit better, hit the outside of the post. Good to see Sar score again, though. I think, obviously a lot has been made of Eze going, and he is obviously as a player irreplaceable for what he brings. But I think everyone now recognises how good a player Sar is. When he came in, and maybe this is something that happens to whoever comes in to replace, in inverted commas, Eze. When Sar came in to replace Elise, a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, he's obviously not going to be as good." And he's a completely different player. And Elise is, we all know he's on another level. He's unbelievable. But for what Sar brings, especially to this system we play and the sort of player that Glasner wants in that position, I think Sar's just an unbelievable player for us. So I'm really glad that he's sort of picked up where he left off at the end of last year. And it was a good finish. I think he anticipated well, took it well. And like you say, I think we were probably knackered by the time the halftime whistle came around. But maybe that sort of played into, we looked at how many subs Forest made in the second half when they were pushing. And that shows whether Nuno wants all these players or not is a different story. But they have a big squad. And I thought they grew into the game. Annoyingly, Dan and Doy, who I thought hadn't done that much, played a fantastic pass for their goal. At the time, I hadn't really appreciated what a good pass it was. I was just wondering how Hudson Odoi had got round T. But when I watch the goal back, it's a fucking good pass.
Yeah, look, totally agree. And it was again wrong to say it was against the run of play, but at that stage, it wasn't a bombardment on our goal. It was very competitive, and actually, we got sucker punched. It was like, is it going to be? Is it always the same with Forest? Literally, their first real attack, they bloody well score from, and the answer was yes, it was. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, quite clearly, we'd played on the Thursday and had a little bit more tired legs. That wasn't the issue. It wasn't about our 11 being tired. It was the 4 and 5 they introduced and had no drop off in quality, and still had Douglas Luiz on the bench and stuff like that. And then you looked over at our bench and went, yeah, there's not a lot that's going to come in, and there wasn't 4 or 5 changes you could make there that either didn't massively disrupt the system or there was a big drop off on the player for the one coming off.
So I guess the one thing left to talk about is obviously the banner. I'm sure Mr. Marinakis will be writing a letter. That seems to be his favourite thing to do. Again, always good for me to see what it is after the game, because I have to sort of I'm close to him, so I can see bits of it. But as you know, it's rippling or whatever, can't see it all. But it was really funny, to be honest.
Fantastic.
I'm sure something will come of it. We'll probably get fined, I would imagine. Yeah. But like you say, I think it's good that the tifo itself was more a celebration of us, and the banner was to sort of point out the unjustness of the situation. And to be honest,
Sorry, talked over.
No, I was going to say. I mean, I've seen a few Forest fans. Again, online is online. A few Forest fans have said, to be fair, it's pretty good. It's pretty funny. I'm sure there's a lot that think it's stupid and they all love Marinakis, but I think any neutral will look at that and nod their head and smile if they saw it.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you break it down into sort of chunks, there's a bit of it which is that's the personality of the HF. You can draw the line there back to the Millwall one, a decade ago or whenever it was, more than a decade ago. There's the cleverness in there. I can't see how we can write. It said he's not involved in it. So what you're moaning that you're not, It's so there's some fantastic things in it. It's hard to get sued by anybody. That's a well done anybody involved in pulling that together. Quite clearly, it allowed them to then post that, go point the links out for the stories that's all about. But they had to do something.
Yeah.
Like they had to do something, and the fact they chose to do it during the game after we've had our celebration, fair play to them. Lots and lots of there's always lots of creativity with the HF. I think what you say with that, there's lots of intelligence used in that as well. So fair play to them.
Yeah, and I had noticed as well, way after the game, saw in pictures of the crowd, Woody Johnson was in the crowd. As well as our new, I don't know if it's official, our new sporting director. I saw him there. Thomas Tuchel. And also, weirdly, and I don't even know if you know him, the actor Jeffrey Wright.
No, I don't know Jeffrey Wright. I spotted Yaya Toure. Who's Jeffrey Wright?
He, I reckon you'd know him if you saw a photo of him. Off the top of my head, I couldn't even tell you what he's been in, but he's been in loads of stuff. To the point where he was sat, I think he was sat behind Blitzer, who I guess he must know one of the Americans.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's not the first time Woody's been there, but it was good to see him there. I think a lot of people have picked up on it in the week that we want the club to be spending money. Good to see his face in there.
Yeah, look, and I think that story that's circulated, which I think is only a half truth, of he wants out already. I think it puts a chunk of that to bed, and I don't think he does want out totally. He just might not want all of his shareholding, and that had been something that had been agreed previously.
Yeah. Right. So I think we're going to get onto the meaty part of the episode, which is probably what everyone's tuned in for. They certainly haven't tuned in to listen to me. The transfer stuff. We should probably start, even though we've sort of briefly glossed over it, with Eze's going to Arsenal. How did you? I haven't watched it, but have you seen his introduction video with Ian Wright on it?
Yeah, do you know what? I know people could say this is amateurish. It's popped up on my timeline so many times, I can't watch it. Right? I've got my memories of Ebbs. I have been told it's a lovely piece. I really probably should go and watch it. I just don't want my heart broken in any which way. So I've deliberately walked away from it as stands.
Fair, absolutely fair. Normally when we have a player like a sort of big player leave, we talk about what's your favourite goal and this and that and the other.
Yeah.
I mean, if people's favourite goal is not the one that wins the FA Cup final, then I don't really know. I don't really know what's going on. But I think it's worth saying, and I know you've done some stuff and you're involved with the Palace for Life. But on the pitch, we all know how good Eze was, obviously, and he over the last 5 years been great watching him. He's just as good off the pitch, isn't he? He not only gets the club and the area, but what the community actually means and what he and the club mean to the community.
Yeah, he's an incredible human being. And again, look, if people, you just do the quick flashback. Somebody says to you, "What do you remember most about him?" If I have to think about it, I'm going to go, it's the goal at the FA Cup final or whatever, that run, that moment. Springtime Ebbs turned up and gave us just the most incredible 10 weeks or whatever. I was lucky enough to get him to sell us for all of the COVID games. It was real, even going was quite dark. He would turn up. And he'd been out delivering meals to people. He'd been out making sure people... And he'd turn up with a big smile and say hello to absolutely everybody. And some of the players... We've not got a bad bunch at Palace. Full stop. I've not met any with it. Not in the last decade. Not under Freeman's watch, where anybody's coming with any arrogance or anything along those lines. They've all been pretty good. But he goes out of his way just what a great person. So, yeah, I mean, brilliant human being. Brilliant, great footballer, brilliant human being.
Yeah. And obviously it's a shame that he's gone, but club record fee received. Kind of understand it from all sides, really. He'll be very good for Arsenal. He wanted to go to Arsenal. I'm sure Spurs fans are not quite as happy as everyone that he went to Arsenal instead of them. And we get quite a lot of money, back to us. So, before we talk about what we might spend it on, a few outs and potential outs. Confirmed today, 2 loans out. So the first this morning was Hindelo Mustafa signed a new contract and gone to Nuremberg in the second division in Germany. Really pleased that he signed a new contract to start with, because whenever I watch him for the academy teams, when it was the 18s and the 21s, he's a standout. He's great. I really, really like him. And by all accounts, Glasner was really wanting to see what he was about pre-season in Austria before he got injured. So the fact that we've got him to sign a new contract, so it's not a Jesse Derry situation where he goes and signs somewhere else, but also that he gets to play for a team that average sort of 35,000 a game, who probably not in his comfort zone to move as a 19-year-old to Germany. This could really be a really good sort of making of him and giving him a really good foundation to push on from.
Yeah, totally. Brilliantly put. I couldn't put it any better myself. You get the feeling if he had, or he may well have got an opportunity around the first team squad, especially till January, if he'd had a full pre-season, and they haven't, and they've done the absolute next best thing. Some learnings from Raksaki a few years, 2-3 seasons back, which is, no, tell you what, we'll get you straight out. We're not going to hold you back, etc. We'll get you straight out, and yeah, under a contract as well. So yeah, look, I'd be amazed if he isn't in the Palace first team squad in 12 months time or 24 months time. The best thing he can go do is he's playing in a proper league and he's playing in front of a proper crowd. So great development for him.
And the other sort of big loan that was announced today was Matheus França out back to Brazil to Vasco da Gama. Been given the number 9 shirt, I think. So having the pressure of 11 at Palace after Wilf and 9 at Vasco. But again, I mean, he's obviously been blighted by injuries, and it seems to me like worst case scenario, he does well there and he gets to go back to Brazil. Best case, we get a fully fit, still young winger with a good, year of first team under his belt. How do you see that one?
I mean, again, first of all, I don't know if I talked it on the pod or not, but I've definitely talked it sort of down the pub. Planned. Very, very, very much planned from last May. I don't know if Glasner rates him or not. I don't know Glasner to ask him or whatever it may be. But Palace definitely still do.
Mm-hmm.
If they'd had an offer come in or it was a loan with an option to buy, they wouldn't have accepted it. They still believe in the player. They still believe in Dougie, in bringing him in. A little bit like JP, not everything works out. They wanted to get him game time this year.
Mm-hmm.
There is no value in him getting the odd 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. So he goes back. He hopefully, to your point, he plays really, really well. And he plays so well that next season he's a slam dunk as a part of the first team squad. And actually, he's pushing to start every match. That's their hope. I think Palace, what Palace didn't want to do was he goes through another year of his contract and he's got, 7, 8 appearances under his belt, no starts, and he's just not getting at his age. He needs to play football games, and that's what they've given him. And they've given him football games in an environment that he can adjust to. So he only has to focus on football. So look, it's a they've left it towards the back end of the window because they want to be absolutely certain they can bring somebody in.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have let him go if they couldn't have brought anybody in. They weren't going to let Ebbs and França go and leave the squad as it was. They are very, very confident of bringing somebody in.
Dad, te tengo una buena noticia. Si nos cambiamos a Verizon, nos dan 4 líneas por el precio de 3.
¿De verdad? Es como si la cuarta línea fuera gratis. Ok, una para mí, otra para tu mamá, una para ti y la cuarta para...
¿Para mi novio?
¿Excuse me?
Dad, mira, quiero estar en contacto con él todo el tiempo, hasta en las vacaciones.
Pero vamos a estar fuera del país.
No importa. Cuando viajas con Verizon, tu teléfono también lo hace. Imagínate, puedes hacer llamadas, textear, así yo estoy contenta.
Y yo también.
Que empiecen las vacaciones y los ahorros con My Plan de Verizon. Cámbiate hoy y llévate una cuarta línea para quien tú quieras por el precio de 3 por solo $30 por línea al mes en Unlimited Welcome y AutoPay más impuestos y cargos. Además, usa tu teléfono en el extranjero con Travel Pass en un país que elijas 3 días al mes por $10 al agregarlo a My Plan. Visita tu tienda Verizon en DC. En el plan Unlimited Welcome, los datos Unlimited 5G y 4G LTE podrían ser temporalmente más lentos que los de otro tráfico durante una congestión. Roaming de datos nacional a velocidades 2G. Se requiere tener una línea suscrita a My Plan para los 3 días de Travel Pass. Se aplican términos adicionales.
And so another sort of wide player we've got is Jez, who, a report today, what truth there is in it, I don't know, that Southampton bid for him and it was knocked back. I know they'd wanted him previously when Russell Martin was in charge, and obviously there'd been links, probably because of that, to a Rangers deal. It feels at his age, I think he's 23 now, that Glasner just obviously isn't a big fan and feels the best thing is for him to go. He mentioned, Glasner, that he said, the squad at the moment includes 2 players they've told who should look to leave. I'm assuming that's Jez and Edouard.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's movement on Jez? It seems like he's the sort of player who would do well in the Championship.
Yeah. Like, I think, again, Palace backed the manager. If you'd asked, 12 months ago, they were rather hoping he would go out on loan. He'd have a brilliant season. He'd come back in. Glasner would see something different and he'd be integrated into the first team squad. Mm-hmm. Glasner's opinion hasn't changed. He didn't have a brilliant loan period. They had their falling out in pre-season after the Crawley game the previous season. So, all of that stands there. So, Palace have a choice. They either need to start to extend his contract, clearly not something they want to go do, or they need to sell. They don't even really want to loan.
Yeah.
Rangers' interest was definite, but the structure of that deal was a loan with, if certain obligations were met, there'd be a fee at the end of it. Palace looked at it and went, well, we've got the risk here because you just might be handing him back and he's learned another year of his contract's gone down. Yeah. There's no guarantee you're buying him. So Yeah, I don't know about that. The Southampton thing's come too quick for me to go ask the question. It's come through today, so it wasn't. I didn't know anything was coming on it. I imagine maybe it will be true. Nobody ever accepts the first offer. What Palace definitely would ideally like to do is go sell him, and they'd like to have some form of clause in there which has got to sell on, because I think they still think there could be a really top player in there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they don't think of that for Edouard. There's been sort of rumours of him that he turned down the MLS last year. There was some rumour that Nice were after him this summer. It seems maybe he's been burned by that season last year at Leicester where they didn't score for 8 games in a row and he didn't even make the bench. I'm not as down on him as some people are. I think obviously his time at Palace is over. But do you think that there's going to be any movement with him, or do you think he'll still be Palace come the window close?
I imagine, in light of he's a centre forward, he will go. There's always a demand for centre forwards, even one that might not have scored last season and had a bad loan spell with Leicester. Somebody will take the gamble on him. Look, the big. I mean, quite clearly, it's a different situation with Edouard versus Jezreel Saki. He started Edouard at the start of last season at Brentford.
Mm-hmm.
Chances were missed. He went out on loan, but he has integrated him back in. He has played him in pre-season, and as we know, he brought him on against Forest. So there's a level of a trust there. He just doesn't rate him, and it's not about attitude or anything else. So. Look, if it's the worst case scenario is nobody does come in for him and he ends up as the third choice centre forward or fourth choice centre forward, I should say. Because Sarr's ahead of him as a centre forward. But if he ends up as the fourth choice centre forward, it's probably not the end of the world. We've definitely had worse second choice centre forwards, let alone having him as a fourth choice. But Palace' ideal scenario is he's on a decent wage. He goes, we get a fee in, and we move on. Palace would very, very, very happily reinvest anything they get back off Edouard and a little bit more behind somebody who may well better be suited to Glasner.
Yeah. And that, I suppose, leads us to the only sort of outstanding one, which is obviously Mark Gay. I watched the Liverpool game against Newcastle last night, so we're recording on Tuesday evening. And Konate was shit again. I don't watch much Liverpool, to be honest, but every time I do, I feel like it's quite noticeable that he's not great. And this is not me talking it into existence, but I just feel like Gay is a perfect signing for them. And I assumed that they'd come in from early doors and they'd bring him in. Obviously, we've talked about Glasner would love him to stay. I think we'd all love him to stay. But financially, that might not make the best of sense of the club, as you mentioned. Do we think that might happen for the window, or do we think that now Gay's more than likely to stay and we can just sort of get on with it?
I think my money would be on he stays, which is, look, I think Liverpool have obviously got an Isaac thing, but I can't remember who said it. There was I think it was somebody at The Athletic did a really interesting piece on Liverpool and their acquisition strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, they either buy, they've got 3 prongs to their strategy. It is world-class players that they will pay a top fee for that instantly goes into their team and they know will make a significant difference.
Mm-hmm.
It is players who they believe could be a part of their first team and they can get them at a price that is just too good to turn down. And third is really, really bright young talent.
Mm-hmm.
Gay for them, for one reason or another, they've got him in the second category, not the top first category. They would have to go and spend big, big money on Van Dijk, happy to spend money on Wirtz, etc., etc., etc. They've got him, not is he a £60 million defender that we can get for 40 or 45? They've got, he's a £60 million defender we can get for nothing next year.
Yeah.
And that's the bit they can't get their head around at the moment, which is he's available for free next summer, and we know we can go do that. I think if you're Unique Sports, you're his agents at the moment. They've got their flagship. They've got two flagship players, Reece James and Anthony Gordon. They've got lots and lots of players, but that's what they classify as their flagship.
Mm-hmm.
They would love Mark to move to a top club. But by the same token, I don't think they'd be unhappy him spending another 12 months at Selhurst and running down his contract, because they literally can put him anywhere. And that includes Real Madrid, Barcelona, top teams, or a Liverpool. So for them, I don't think they're pushing this very hard because they don't have to. It's a win-win whichever way for them. So you've got an agent who doesn't really mind. I don't think Mark really minds. If Liverpool come in and a fee's agreed, I'll go. If they don't, I'll play the next year. I look forward to lifting a trophy in Leipzig in May. And then I'll go to wherever I want to go to on even more salary and a massive signing-on fee. So actually, this is in Liverpool's hands, only Liverpool's hands now, to go. I'll talk about Palace in a second, but in Liverpool's hands to go, all right then, we'll put the money on the table to make it interesting enough. There's been no sign of that yet, but maybe if Isaac deal doesn't happen and then they have got available funds to go do it and Konate is shite, they go, all right, then we will go and pump the money and go do the deal, but there's no sign of it yet. Say, on the Palace one, Palace obviously play a part in all of this, but this isn't very Palace, because what a lot of other clubs would have done with a player of a year to go in a World Cup year is they would have brought in Diamonde and brought in another centre-back and said, Mark, you can see you next year, mate, but you're actually not in our team. We've replaced you. And watch him then and his agent want to try and get him out because it's a World Cup year. He won't want to sit a year on the bench. That's not us, and we haven't had the money to go do that. And you hear about how everybody talks about, the players that leave, how good a club we are. Yeah, that's where we're maybe a little bit too nice. We're not a complete business.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to obviously wait and see for that. I mean, I wouldn't be, much as I would like Palace to have more money to spend, if Mark Gay does another year, I'm not going to be too upset because he's probably the best defender I've ever seen play for us. I love watching him play. He's great. But let's talk about incomings now. I think that's the stuff that people are really tuning in for. Loads of names have been popping up, especially in the last sort of week and a half. A few that now seem to be dropping off our list. So I guess we can have a quick chat about those. I suppose the main two today that have been really bashed on the head are Hwang at Wolves. Apparently Wolves say that he's very much in their plans. They're not listening to offers. They don't want to let him go. Whether that's because they're not bringing anyone in, I don't know. I'm not really up to date with what Wolves are doing, to be honest with you. And the other one is El Canous at Leicester. What do we know anything about either of those? Are they players that we really did want, or not that fussed that the deals might not be happening?
Yeah, these are our decisions. I know the stories are spun differently. These are our decisions. The Hwang was us approaching them. We didn't want to buy. We wanted a loan. We wanted an option. The conversations were started. We were trying to get it to a place, but we know we want to go do something else. We would like to bring in a centre forward. Clear. We want to bring in a centre forward. I didn't know that as clear as I do now. I didn't know that 2-3 weeks or so ago. It was we would like to bring in a centre forward. Now it is, we are going to bring in a centre forward. So they've got that in their mind. That was one of the options they wanted to go do. Palace, to go do it, would have actually had to go put money up front to go buy him. They're not that sold on him to want to go do that. So that was one we backed out of on Friday. El Canous, we've played games with. This is what football clubs go do, but definitely I only know it from Palace. we furthered options the whole way through. He is one that we've negotiated with, we've agreed. He's been connected up with Palace. As of Friday, I think if you had asked his camp, he is definitely joining Crystal Palace.
Mhm.
Did we have an out-and-out fee agreed with Leicester? No, but you're talking 2 million apart. In a whole scheme of things, it's a rounding error. They would have got there. Leicester have had to make some sales since. They've not pulled the El Canoes because they sold Justin James. They sold Justin James because they realised they were getting played on El Canoe, so we weren't going to go ahead with it. And, put quite simply, we had another. He was our plan B / plan C. I'd reached the conclusion by Sunday morning, he was our plan C.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was one that we knew we could just switch on if we had to, but they clearly, one we go talk about was Pino. They needed to, that's the one they'd been working on, and yeah, they got the clear green lights that they could go make that one happen.
The other one whose name popped up and then popped off fairly quickly was Conor Gallagher. His same sort of came publicly anyway, came out of nowhere, and then by the end of the day, it was Atleti don't want to let him go. There was a story that the foreigner rule or the non-EU rule in Spain was a reason, and all the rest of it. Is that someone we did want? Is it still up in the air? Do you know, or is it just a sort of lazy link?
No, it's a really interesting one. We approached his camp, weeks ago, and got no real love and it was always dependent on if Eze go.
Mm-hmm.
His camp approached us last week and said he wants to come back, he wants to play at Crystal Palace, he wants to be a part of it, and yeah, I think is it dead? Definitely not. I think it's very, very, very much alive. I think we're just into that negotiation position.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine if you're at Letty and you're going, what do you want? There go. We'd be quite keen to sell him, please.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Crystal Palace at the present moment in time, you're going, no, we're just about to spend a whole load of money in some other areas. We'd quite like to bring him in on a loan and have an option. Mm-hmm. There's combinations there which get this thing done. I think Glasner's massively excited. I think all the Palace backroom staff are massively excited about it. I think they're going to do absolutely everything they possibly can to make it happen, and they're planning on him coming in. They're absolutely planning on him coming in.
Nice. I mean, and I think obviously he's one who Premier League experience, Crystal Palace Premier League experience. Like everyone loved him, didn't they, in the year that he was here under Vieira, and much as at the end of that year, he was, I want to go and get in the Chelsea first team. This is what my dream has been. Everyone was disappointed that we weren't able to get him in permanently. So if there's a chance, I think it's the ultimate hit the ground running, isn't it? Because he just knows what the club's all about. And if we keep Gay, who's his best mate, or they've grown up together, also doesn't hurt. So I wouldn't be against it. I definitely wouldn't be against it.
I think again, after last season, we need to live in the moment. There needs to be a balance, an absolute balance. We've got our greatest ever manager. We might only have him for one more year. Let's get another trophy or two out of him. Yeah. I think we have to give ourselves the best chance of doing that, and he does that. He's not one for the future. It's not like Pino. He's not one who's clearly a hell of a talent, but might take a season or two to acclimatise to the Premier League. Gallagher will come in and it'll be like he was playing here last week. And I think you can clearly see with Glasner what he wants. A little bit like Sarr coming in, Munoz, etc. They're grown up, experienced players who have still got a load of hunger in their peak. That's what Gallagher is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the one that we've been doing a lot of work on, and one which at the day of recording seems to have accelerated publicly, at least, is Jeremy Pino from Villarreal. I think he sort of ticks a lot of boxes, doesn't he? So he's still young. He's 22, but was really highly thought of when he was younger. 15 caps for Spain, which, considering the midfielders and forwards that country's got, is no mean feat at age 22. And it sounds like that's very close, if not done. And one that seems to be exciting a lot of people.
Yeah, I was devastated, Hesketh. I sent the WhatsApp going, here's something to talk about yesterday. I'll break this story. It's definitely going to happen. Some bloke who's Italian has announced it, and but more than that, some of the probably more reliable sources and who have well and truly been broken the story. I think the background behind it, one that Palace have been looking at for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if they thought they could go do it. We've been into their camp. Swassman Group been into their camp, put a big offer on the table to him financially compared to what he's earning. I think they had a renewal contract on the table with him. He hasn't signed it. They've recognised then, all right, we're not going to get caught. We're happy to go sell. And yeah, we look like we've, if Ebbs had stayed, was this one we were going to go do? Maybe. With Ebbs going, it's one we absolutely have to go do. And yeah, I think they, again, until he stood there holding up the shirt,
yep.
This is Crystal Palace after all. But as stands at the present moment in time, yeah, everybody's really, really confident, and yeah, he's hoping over the next 24 hours or so, he's on a private jet for a medical.
Fingers crossed, yeah. And I guess the other name that's been linked quite a lot in that sort of area is Solis, the Greek guy at Bruges. Obviously, Bruges doing very well in the first leg against Rangers at Ibrox. He got 2 assists, as we talked about last week, I think. Likely they're going to get through into the group stages of the Champions League, so won't need the money, etc. From what I've read, he is a player that Glasner quite likes himself.
Yeah.
Do we think that's a very difficult one to do because of all the above?
I don't think it's live now. I think the Lord took him away from... Sorry, backtrack. Everything you just said is right, and Glasner really, really does like him. But the Lord took him away out of our reach, almost certainly, with Bruges beating Rangers last week, and one assumes tomorrow night, they go through. But the Lord giveth Conor Gallagher literally on the same day. That's when his camp made contact. So, as stands, I know they're not exactly the same position, but it allows them to do some different things. So I think their thought process at the moment is that isn't one they can go do. It's the likelihood of trying to do it is so low. And if they were to do it, it's such a significant amount of money that, it puts too much risk in it for them. I can't say who there is. They have got another plan.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can, again, in the spirit of they wouldn't mind another option, there is another option who's a grown-up player, international football, played Premier League, probably a little less exciting than other sort of creatives, but stats look absolutely good. And, Palace know his camp really well. They've had conversations. He's in a contract situation not dissimilar to Mark. And so Palace have got that on the back burner at the moment. Pino hopefully comes in, gets done. Gallagher comes in. They want to do a centre forward, but they could be a wild card, really late one that comes in, which is a player who's only got 12 months left on his contract, who instantly Glasner will like because he's got lots and lots of experience. And yeah, that might be the other one they go to. That's more, that sum of money is, 10 to 15 million, not Solis, which is going to be, 30 to 40 million, or probably nearer 40 now to go get him out.
Until you said 10 to 15 million, I was going to get my welcome back Andros banner out, but
but yeah, do you know what? It's interesting. It's not that. I mean, look, he's a bit more of a winger than he is a sort of an. I don't remember this player scoring worldies like at the Etihad. But yeah, he has got that sort of length of experience underneath his belt. You know, he's not quite that age, but you know what I mean. He's
nice.
a proper top player.
So I guess we're moving to the other end of the pitch now. We've talked about Mark potentially going, potentially staying. We've been linked with a few centre halves as well. Again, some by more reputable people than others. There was a link from someone in Hull saying we're after their player. Nothing seems to have come from that. There was a link with Akanji at Manchester City, and a link with Canvo, who plays in Toulouse, who's a younger one. So him and the Hull guy are quite young. Obviously, Akanji is the experienced one. Are we looking for a centre half regardless of Mark?
Yeah, definitely. So, again, nothing really changed since the last time I was on. You know, their thought process since, you know, Mark's dragged through to the window, they know they need another centre-back. They know they need somebody who can come in and hit the ground running and instantly drop into that back line. So, you know, they want to get themselves an experienced one. I don't know anything about the Akanji one. I'm not saying that isn't the option.
Mm-hmm.
What I was told is they're going to go and get themselves a experienced centre back, almost certainly on loan.
Mm-hmm.
He fits that bill. I'd be amazed if we've gone and offered proper cash up front to go buy him.
Yeah.
But Man City have been very open in they want to stream down their squad. I'm wondering if we have gone, we take a loan with an option to buy or something along those lines. He fits the bill absolutely perfectly. He can play right back.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. He can, you know, instantly slot into any of those positions across the back three, but definitely into the Mark position or into the Chris Richards position. So, you know, and again, you would imagine the manager would be absolutely delighted to have a 30-year-old international, played at Man City, can play out the back, can pass it. I'm not saying he's better than any of the defenders we've got, but he becomes another real viable option. What it also gives Palace, if on August the 31st or August the 31 days in August, on the last day of August, Liverpool come in with 45 million. They know they've got one of his replacements already through the door. So their plan is, they know they need to add an extra centre-back.
Mm-hmm.
In an ideal world, they'd like to do a young one. They can't do a young one whilst Mark's still here. So, yeah, they want to do an experienced one, ideally on loan, an experienced one through the door that covers for them a year. If Mark goes, then next summer they can properly go get his replacement. If Mark stays, then they've got that extra centre-back in. If Mark goes, they'll also do a younger one as well.
Okay. I mean, and I guess, obviously, I'm not going to put too much pressure on it because he's been out for ages. But the hope is, if we can get him back to fitness, we've got Chadi Riyad. I don't expect him until January, even because he's been out for so long. But also, you know, a nice option to have that he's around and he's getting back to fitness, I suppose.
Yeah, I think again, Glasner's a beast with the press, isn't he? He's very clever. He doesn't keep saying, I've got 14 players. I've got 15 players. I've got 14 or 15 outfield players who are fit.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. He knows there's a Chektaguri and he knows there's an Nketiah and he knows there's who else we missing? But yeah,
Chadi, yeah.
There's another one, isn't who's out injured. But either way, Daichi. He knows he's got it. He wants 22, 23 players who, totally including the goalkeepers, who've all got experience and he can put in there. We know, you know, I think I'm with you. Chadi Riyad's, you know, January onwards, Chektaguri's January onwards. Hopefully they're back long before that. They're fully training. Maybe they're getting a few minutes in the Carabao Cup or whatever it may well be. And, you know, some under-21 games and stuff like that. And then they can be introduced to the second half of the season to be options.
Yeah. And I mean, great options to come in, especially, I mean, Chadi's a bit less known, but I mean, Decore's Player of the Year a couple of years ago. We know how good he is. We can get him. I think the dream was always seeing him and Wharton have a full season together, but to have him as an option would be great.
Yeah.
Well, great. I mean, I think that covers everything really, transfer wise. By the time we do another pod, I think the window will have slammed shut, so we'll know where we stand, and we'll know what Glasner has to work with for the next few months. So the only thing really left to talk about is a little trip across the sea to Norway. What are you doing? Are you going out there day of game? Are you going out there before?
My anxiety levels would never let me do day of the game. I've done a load of international football. I've done England since the 80s. I've done the odd day of the game, and I definitely don't sleep very well. So anybody listening to this who's doing day of the game, don't worry. It all goes seemingly perfect. All your flights are taken off on time, and all you can. No. So we are. Yeah, I've got a bit of work tomorrow morning, and then we're on we're into Gothenburg for Wednesday evening. So
nice.
We'll do that usual. We'll just have a quiet night ahead of the big game, and undoubtedly be out till 2 a.m. And yeah, we're on the train up to Fredrikstad on Thursday morning, in relatively early. I think I'm rather hoping it stays dry. Riverside bars, must remember to eat.
Yeah.
I know there's a little bit of nervousness where the meetup is for the march to the ground. This is Palace in Europe. We've got to get 1,000, 1,500, 1,700 of us together. The police can divert us in any which way you like, but the Covent Garden takeover is going to happen somewhere in Fredrikstad, and then whatever time it is, the HF has said 4:30 odd, a little walk up to the ground, singing away. So yeah, really looking forward to it. What about you, Hesketh? What's your plans?
So much like you, I'm not leaving it to the day of the game because my anxiety levels. To be honest, my anxiety levels are high for every waking minute of my life. So we're flying into Oslo Wednesday evening, staying in a hotel basically at the airport because we're getting pretty late, but then going into Oslo Thursday morning, getting some food, and then getting the train to Fredrikstad, which I think is about an hour, early afternoon, which other mates are also coming up from Gothenburg. So I think we're all aiming to sort of converge on Fredrikstad around the same time. So if anyone's on the plane from Stansted to Oslo Wednesday evening and you see me and or Vanessa, give us a shout. Can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. I think I'd like us to get an early goal, settle the nerves a bit, so we can really enjoy a win away in Europe. I don't want to have any nervy moments. Celtic fans flew out to Kazakhstan today, saw a 0-0 draw and lost on penalties. So I'm quite glad that that's not on the table at the moment. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Everyone's first competitive Palace away game. I'm not counting Samsunspor, and I wasn't there away anyway. But it's something to look forward to, isn't it? It's hopefully the start of quite a few more of these this season. What do you reckon on the game itself? Confident?
Yeah, look, obviously it's a plastic pitch, and they're going to be up for it and all of that. Again, I back this manager. They've played in fiercer environments, and they might not have played on tougher pitches, but I back this manager. So yeah, we'll be well drilled. I mean, one assumes. I mean, again, go back to not making excuses for the Fredrikstad home game. Well, I am making excuses for Fredrikstad. Players and managers are so obsessive about stuff. That was the third different match ball we'd played in 3 games.
Huh.
I am, they played with a Mitre one in the Community Shield. They played with a Puma one, and then this is a Derby Star ball. It's just stuff like that. We kept hitting the cover off of it, and our shots were slightly. I think we'd just be a whole load better. And I'm with you. I'm hoping we get. I imagine if we score once, we're through. But if we get, if we can get one early and just settle it all down, and if they then have to come out, then Sarah have a field day. I'm rather hoping we see Remain play instead of Devs, but either way, hopefully they all know what they got to go do, and I just dream we get through this, and we've got at least 3 more away days in Europe. Later this year.
I mean, as positive an ending as you'll get, I think. Certainly with me on the call. But I think that's it, mate. I think we've chatted for quite a bit. So as always, I appreciate you coming on and giving us the insight. I'm sure I'll see you in Norway. I would say my round, but I haven't taken an overdraft out, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, mate, thanks for coming along. And
brilliant to be here, and let's all the positive energy for the next few days and get through it.
Great.
And then bloody players.
Yes, that would be nice. Right, well, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks again, Carl, for coming, and until next time, up the palace.